The ice moon had no name. It drifted alone in the barren corridor, that dead stretch of space where old ships came to rest and older secrets stayed buried. Darren Cole liked out here. No company, no questions, just him, his scanner, and the quiet hum of his salvage vessel. The pocket changed. He had been picking through wreckage for 11 years now. Broken freighters, abandoned stations. Once, he found a luxury yacht with a skeleton still strapped in the pilot's seat. The galaxy threw away more than it kept, and Darren made his living from the scraps. But this was different. His scanner had picked up a mass signature inside the moon. Something big, something that should not exist in a place like this. Darren told himself to ignore it. He told himself that curiosity killed salvage operators faster than radiation leaks. Then he changed course anyway. 3 hours of cutting through ancient ice brought him to a cavern that had been sealed for longer than humans had been walking upright. His lights swept across the darkness and found metal. Not the rusted, pitted metal of a derelict. This was smooth, perfect, dark blue and silver, like a frozen river under starlight. The ship was enormous. His entire vessel could fit inside one of its engine housings. Darren had seen warships from a dozen species. He had never seen anything like this. He checked his database. The design matched nothing from the last 10,000 years of galactic records. But there was one old entry, flagged as historical, that showed a similar curve to the hull. Keldari, a species that had vanished 12,000 years ago. Their homeworlds were empty. Their colonies were dust. Every expert agreed they had gone extinct. Yet here was their flagship, frozen in ice, waiting. Darren knew he should call it in. Report the find. Let the authorities handle it. But authorities meant the Galactic Reclamation Authority, and the GRA had a simple policy for ancient alien technology. Destroy it before someone gets hurt. He walked through the silent corridors instead. Emergency lighting flickered in response to his movement, dim and blue. The air inside was cold but breathable. The ship had been in stasis, not death. Everything was preserved, waiting. The reactor chamber sat at the heart of the vessel. Darren had restarted enough dead ships to know the basics. Find the core. Warm it slowly. Pray nothing explodes. He ran his hands over controls that were built for fingers different from his own and began the sequence. It took 4 hours. The reactor fought him at first, confused by commands from an unfamiliar species. But Darren was patient. He had learned patience from years of coaxing broken machines back to life. Slowly, the core began to glow. Heat spread through frozen conduits. Systems that had slept for millennia stirred. Lights came on throughout the ship. Not the dim emergency glow, but real illumination. Warm, almost welcoming. Darren stood in the reactor chamber and listened to the heartbeat of a vessel that was older than human civilization. Then he heard the voice that it came from everywhere at once. The walls, the floor, the air itself. The language was nothing he recognized, musical and sad, full of sounds that human throats could never make. But after a moment, it changed, shifted, became something he could almost understand. You should not have come. Darren froze. His hand moved toward the pistol on his hip. But I'm glad you did. The voice was female, or something close to it. Old and tired and surprised all at once. Who are you? Darren asked the empty air. I am what remains, the voice answered. I'm the last guardian. I am the ship, and the ship is me. I have been sleeping for so long. I had forgotten what it felt like to be awake. The Keldari, Darren said. Your people. Everyone thinks they're gone. A pause. When the voice spoke again, it carried something like grief. They're not gone. They are hidden, and I have been protecting them. 8,000 of my people sleep in the chambers below. The last survivors. The final hope. Darren felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He had come looking for salvage. Instead, he had found the last remnants of an entire civilization. What do you need? He asked. Help, the voice said simply. I have been alone for 12,000 years. I have kept them safe in the cold and the dark. But I cannot wake them alone. I cannot protect them alone. I need someone who can do what I cannot. And what's that? Live, the voice answered. Adapt. Fight. Your species is young. I have watched you from the edge of sleep. You survive things that should destroy you. You keep going when others would stop. I need that. I need you. Outside the ice moon, in the cold void of space, 3 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. GRA markings glowed on their hulls. They had detected the power signature. They were coming. Darren looked at the walls around him, at the ship that had trusted him with its greatest secret. "All right," he said. "Tell me what to do." Deep in the vessel, in chambers that had been silent since before humanity learned to write, 8,000 Keldari dreamed of a future they might finally get to see. And above them all, the guardian who had waited 12,000 years for help finally allowed herself to hope. 12,000 years of silence ended with a human asking stupid questions. "So you're the ship?" Darren asked, walking through corridors that sealed themselves behind him. "Or you're in the ship? Or the ship is wearing you like a suit?" "I am Iathi," the voice replied. It came from panels in the walls, from vents in the ceiling, from everywhere and nowhere. "I was once flesh and thought like you. When the end came, I gave myself to the ascending silence. My mind lives in its systems. My memories flow through its conduits. We are one now." "That sounds lonely." A pause. "Yes." The GRA ships were closing in. Darren could see them on a display screen that flickered to life as he passed. 3 cruisers, standard enforcement class. Enough firepower to crack a small moon. "They will demand you surrender the vessel," Iathi said. "They will say it is for safety. They will say ancient technology is dangerous." "Is it?" "Yes, but not in the way they fear." Commander Prail's voice crackled through Darren's communicator. She was GRA through and through, the kind of officer who believed rules existed for good reasons. Darren had dealt with her twice before. She was not cruel, but she was not flexible either. "Salvage Operator Cole, you are ordered to power down the alien vessel and prepare for boarding. This is not a negotiation." Darren looked at the walls around him. "Iathi, if they board this ship, what happens to your people? They will be taken, studied, separated. The GRA does not trust what it does not understand. 8,000 sleeping Keldari will become specimens in different facilities across the galaxy. They will never wake together. They will never rebuild. Can we run?" "The ship has not moved in 12 millennia. I do not know if the engines still function. I do not know if I remember how to fly." Then we figured out. Darren started moving faster, following lights that Iathi activated ahead of him. "Where's the bridge?" "There is no bridge. I am the bridge. But there is an interface chamber, a place where flesh can speak directly to the ship's mind. The Keldari used it for emergency control. Take me there." The chamber was small and organic-looking, all curves and soft surfaces. A single seat sat in the center, surrounded by tendrils of silver metal that hung from the ceiling like sleeping snakes. The interface was built for Keldari minds, Iathi warned. 4 lobe brains. Different chemistry. No human has ever connected to a system like this. What happens if I try? I do not know. Pain, certainly. Damage, possibly. Death, perhaps. Outside, Commander Prail was getting impatient. "Cole, you have 60 seconds to respond before we assume hostile intent." Darren sat in the chair. The metal tendrils stirred, sensing his presence. "Iathi, I'm going to be honest. I've done a lot of dumb things in my life, but I've never let someone down when they really needed help. So let's see if human stubbornness counts for anything. You would risk your mind for people you have never met. Lady, I've risked my life for a lot less. At least this time it matters." The tendrils descended. They touched his temples, his spine, the base of his skull. Cold at first, then warm, then something beyond temperature. Darren felt his awareness expand like a balloon filling with air. Suddenly, he was not just in the chair. He was in the walls, the corridors, the engines, the frozen chambers where 8,000 Keldari dreamed that he felt Iathi beside him, not as a voice now, but as a presence. Her loneliness crashed into him like a wave. 12,000 years of waiting. 12,000 years of watching her people sleep and praying someone would come. She had almost given up hope so many times. She had almost let herself fade into the ship's systems and forget she had ever been alive. But she had held on. For them. For this moment. "Darren." Her voice was inside his head now. I can feel you. Your mind is so strange, so loud, so stubborn. Yeah, I get that a lot. Can we fly this thing or not? The engines are functional, but I have forgotten so much. The navigation systems are beyond me. I cannot calculate the trajectories we need. Then don't calculate. Feel. What? Darren pushed his awareness into the engine systems. They were alien, yes, built on principles he did not understand. But engines were engines. They wanted to move. They wanted to burn. He could feel that desire like heat against his skin. 30 seconds, coal. Prail warned. Darren did not calculate. He did not plan. He reached into the ancient machinery and asked it, very politely, to wake up. The ascending silence shuddered. Ice cracked and fell away from its hull. Engines that had been cold since before the pyramids were built roared to life. The ship rose from its tomb, shedding 12,000 years of frozen sleep. Impossible y était whispered. Not impossible, just unlikely. Darren grinned, even though his nose was bleeding and his head felt like it was splitting open. Now let's go somewhere these GRA jerks can't follow. The flagship tore through the ice moon's surface and into open space. The GRA cruisers scrambled to pursue, but they were too slow. Darren pushed the ship toward an uncharted transit corridor, a fold in space that most pilots avoided because the math was too dangerous. He did not do the math. He just flew. Behind them, Commander Prail watched the ancient vessel vanish into the void. She had seen many strange things in her career, but a human bonding with a 12,000-year-old alien ship and flying it through impossible space was new. Track them, she ordered. I want to know where they're going. In the interface chamber, Darren disconnected from the ship's systems. He slumped in the chair, blood dripping from his nose and ears, his body shaking. But he was smiling. We made it, he said. Yes. Iothi's voice was soft now, almost tender. You are hurt. I'll live. Humans are good at that. I am beginning to understand that. 3 days in deep space, hiding in the shadow of a dying star. And Iothi finally remembered why her people had disappeared. We call them the Hollow Tide, she told Darren. Her voice came from a small speaker near his cot, softer now, almost personal. They're not a species. They're a hunger, a swarm intelligence that moves through the galaxy, consuming everything with technology. Darren sat up. His head still ached from the neural merge, but the bleeding had stopped. Consuming how? They learn. They adapt. When they encounter a civilization, they study its machines, its weapons, its defenses. Then they become immune to all of it. And then they feed. How many species? Before us? 47 that we knew of. Perhaps more that were erased before anyone could record them. Darren had seen a lot of ugly things in the galaxy. Pirate raids, slave markets, corporate wars over mining rights. But a force that ate entire civilizations? That was new. The Keldari were the most advanced species of our era. Iothi continued. We thought we could fight. We were wrong. Every weapon we created, the Tide learned to counter. Every defense we built, they found a way through. In the end, we had only one option. Disappear, so your people scattered. Yes, we destroyed our cities. We burned our libraries. We erased every trace of ourselves from the galaxy. Most of our population fled to hidden colonies with no technology, no machines, nothing the Tide could track. They became farmers and hunters, living as our ancestors did before we reached for the stars. And you stayed behind. Someone had to protect those who could not run. The children, the elderly, the sick. 8,000 Keldari who would not survive on primitive colony worlds. I merged with the ascending silence and hid them in the coldest, emptiest place I could find. For 12,000 years. Yes. Darren was quiet for a moment. He thought about what it would mean to be alone for that long. To wait in the dark while the universe moved on without you. To hold on to hope when every rational thought said hope was foolish. Iothi, why are you telling me this now? Because activating the ship sent a signal. A tiny pulse of energy, nothing more. But the Hollow Tide has been searching for the last Keldari for 12 millennia. They are patient. They do not forget. They're coming. Yes. Darren stood and walked to the nearest viewport. The dying star cast red light across the ship's hull. Somewhere out there, in the vast dark between galaxies, something old and hungry was waking up. How long do we have? Days. Perhaps a week. The tide moves slowly when it is searching. But when it finds its prey, it is fast. Then we need help. Darren pulled out his communicator. There was one person he trusted enough to call. One person who might actually be able to do something. Nira answered on the third ping. Her face appeared on the small screen, pale blue skin and silver eyes. She looked tired. Darren? I thought you were dead. The GRA is saying you stole some kind of ancient weapon. It's not a weapon. It's a refugee ship, and I need your help. Nira had worked with Darren for 3 years before taking a job as a translator for the GRA. She was smart, careful, and very good at finding things that did not want to be found. She was also, though she did not know it, descended from Keldari who had escaped to primitive worlds and slowly rejoined galactic civilization over thousands of years. What kind of help? She asked. I need a place to hide. Somewhere the GRA won't look. Somewhere old. Nira's eyes narrowed. Darren, what are you into? Something bigger than me. Something that matters. Please, Nira. I'll explain everything when I see you. She was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. There's a planet on the edge of explored space. Tessif. The records say it was a Keldari colony world, abandoned 12,000 years ago. The GRA has it flagged as low priority. No resources, no strategic value. Can you meet us there? I can try. But Darren, if you're in trouble with the GRA, I can't protect you. I'm not asking you to protect me. I'm asking you to help me protect someone else. After the call ended, Darren returned to the interface chamber. He did not sit in the chair, but he placed his hand against the wall, feeling the faint warmth of the ship's systems. Iathi, I have a plan. I heard. You trust this Nira with my life, and you believe she can help. I believe she deserves to know the truth. About herself, about her people. Another pause. When Iathi spoke again, there was something new in her voice. Something that might have been hope. You are a strange creature, Darren Cole. You find a ship full of refugees from an extinct species, and your first thought is to save them. You learn of an enemy that has destroyed dozens of civilizations, and you start making plans to fight. Do all humans think like you? Darren smiled. No, most humans are smarter than me, but they don't have a 12,000-year-old friend who needs help. Is that what we are? Friends. Well, you live in my head sometimes, and I've risked my life for you twice now. I think that qualifies. For the first time since she had woken, Iathi laughed. It was a strange sound, mechanical and organic at once, echoing through the ship's corridors like music. Friends then, she said. I have not had a friend in a very long time. Well, stick with me. We're going to make a lot more of them. The ascending silence turned toward Tessif, carrying its precious cargo of 8,000 sleeping Keldari and one stubborn human who refused to give up. Behind them, in the darkness between stars, the hollow tide began to move. Nira had spent her whole life feeling like she did not belong anywhere. Her skin was the wrong shade of blue for the waterworld colonies where her family lived. Her eyes processed light differently than other species. Doctors told her she was a genetic anomaly, a random mutation, nothing to worry about. But Nira had always known there was something more. Now, standing in the cargo hold of the ascending silence, surrounded by 8,000 sleeping Keldari, she finally understood. They look like me, she whispered. You are one of them, Iathi said. Her voice was gentle, almost motherly. When my people scattered, some groups eventually forgot what they were. They rejoined galactic civilization under new names. Your ancestors were among them. Nira touched the glass of the nearest cryogenic pod. Inside, a Keldari child slept, no more than 6 or 7 years old. Same blue skin, same silver eyes, same shape of face that Nira saw every time she looked in a mirror. Why didn't I know? Because we wanted it that way. The scattered colonies destroyed their records, their histories, everything that might lead the hollow tide back to them. You were safe because you did not know. Darren stood at the edge of the cargo hold, watching. He had seen Nira angry before, seen her sad, seen her frustrated. He had never seen her cry. How do we wake them? Nira asked, wiping her eyes. Slowly, Iathi replied. The cryogenic process is delicate. If we rush, we risk brain damage. I can begin the sequence, but it will take days to wake them all safely. Then start with the children. Nira's voice was firm now. They'll adapt faster, and they deserve to see the sun. Tessith was beautiful in a wild, overgrown way. The Keldari colony had been abandoned for 12,000 years, but life had continued without them. Forests covered the old cities. Rivers ran through crumbling streets. The air smelled like flowers and rain. Darren helped set up a base camp in what had once been a public garden. The first children woke 3 days later, confused and frightened, speaking a language that had not been heard in millennia. But Nira was there. She could not speak their words, but she looked like them. She smiled like them. That was enough. The first child to laugh was a girl, named something that sounded like bells ringing. She chased a small flying creature through the tall grass, her bare feet kicking up dirt, her voice carrying across the ancient ruins. Other children followed, hesitant at first, then joyful. Darren watched them from a hill overlooking the camp. His communicator buzzed with a message from Iathi. Tell me what you see. He did. He described the colors of the sunset, orange and purple bleeding into each other like paint. He described the children playing, the way they moved, the sounds they made. He described the wind and the smell of the grass and the feeling of solid ground under his feet. I cannot experience these things anymore, Iathi said. I gave up my body to save them. I do not regret it, but I miss it. When this is over, we'll find a way. Some kind of drone body, maybe something that can touch and taste and feel. You make promises easily. I keep them too. The hollow tide arrived on the 5th day. Darren saw them first, black shapes against the blue sky, descending like a storm made of metal and hunger. Biomechanical drones, thousands of them, each one capable of dissolving technology on contact. They swept across the landscape, searching for the signal that had drawn them here. Everyone into the ruins. Darren shouted, "No technology. Leave everything electronic behind." The Keldari moved fast, guided by Nira and the handful of adults who had woken. They fled into the ancient stone buildings, hiding in shadows, staying still. The tide drones passed overhead, scanning, searching. One of them stopped above the camp. Its sensors locked onto Darren's communicator, still active in his pocket. It dove. Darren threw the device away, but it was too late. The drone was coming for him, jaws opening to consume the technology and the human carrying it. Then the ascending silence roared down from orbit. Iathi had kept the ship hidden behind the planet's moon, waiting. Now, she brought it screaming into the atmosphere, weapons blazing. Ancient energy beams tore through the tide drones like paper. Explosions lit up the sky. Run! Iathi's voice thundered from the ship's speakers. I will hold them off. Gyati, no. Darren ran toward the landing zone. There are too many. You'll be destroyed. Then I will be destroyed protecting my people. It is what I was built for. It's not what I want for you. The ship landed hard, dirt and debris flying everywhere. A hatch opened. Darren climbed inside, blood pumping, heart racing. What are you doing? Iathi demanded. I'm not letting you die alone. We're partners now. Remember? Friends. You cannot help. The tide will consume the ship's systems. They will learn everything we know. Then let's make sure they learn the wrong lessons. Darren sat in the interface chair. The tendrils descended. His mind merged with Iathi's once more, and together they rose to meet the hollow tide. This time, they had a plan. The ascending silence did not fight. It ran. It dodged. It led the swarm on a chase through the ruins of the old colony, drawing them away from the hidden Keldari. Every time a drone got close, Darren improvised. He used maintenance systems as weapons. He turned navigation lights into blinding strobes. He made the ship dance. You are insane, Iathi said in his mind. I'm human. Same thing. They led the swarm into a narrow canyon and collapsed the walls on top of them. Thousands of drones buried under ancient stone. Not enough to stop the tide, but enough to slow it down, enough to buy time. Above Tessith, more ships appeared. GRA vessels, responding to the energy signatures. Commander Prail's voice crackled over the radio. Cole, when the name of sanity is happening down there. Darren laughed, bloody and exhausted and alive. Commander, I'm really glad you're here, because we need to talk. Commander Prail had chased criminals across half the galaxy. She had faced pirates, smugglers, and terrorists. She had never changed her mind about anything. Until today. She stood in the cargo hold of the Ascending Silence, watching Keldari children play with her officers. One boy was trying to teach a GRA Marine a clapping game. Neither of them spoke the other's language. Both of them were laughing. You understand now, Darren said. He leaned against a bulkhead, too tired to stand straight. This isn't stolen technology. It's a refugee ship. I understand that you've created a diplomatic nightmare. Prail's voice was sharp, but her eyes were soft. The GRA has protocols for first contact with lost species. None of them involve one salvage operator hiding 8,000 aliens in deep space. Protocols wouldn't have kept them alive. No, I suppose they wouldn't have. The hollow tide had regrouped. Iothi's sensors tracked a massive swarm gathering at the edge of the system, larger than anything she had seen before. This was not a scouting force. This was an army. How long until they attack? Prail asked. Hours, Iothi answered. Her voice came from the speakers, calm despite the fear Darren could feel through their lingering connection. They are gathering strength. When they come, they will not stop until everything with technology is consumed. Then we evacuate, get the Keldari onto my ships, retreat to defended space. That will not save them, Iothi said. The tide follows. It always follows. You would only bring destruction to more worlds. Prail closed her eyes. Then what do you suggest? Darren stepped forward. We fight. Here. Now. With what? 3 GRA cruisers and 1 ancient flagship against a swarm that destroyed dozens of civilizations. With something the tide has never seen before. Human stubbornness. Nira joined them, her translator working overtime to help the newly awakened Keldari understand what was happening. Most of them were still confused, still adjusting to a galaxy that had changed beyond recognition while they slept. But they were starting to trust, starting to hope. Darren has a plan, Nira said. It's completely insane. It probably won't work, but it's the only thing we've got. Let's hear it, Prail said. Darren pointed at a holographic display showing the approaching swarm. The hollow tide has a central intelligence, a core mind that controls all the drones. Kill it, and the whole swarm falls apart. And where is this core? In the center of the swarm, protected by 1,000,000 drones. Impossible to reach. That's not a plan. That's a death wish. Not impossible for us. Iothi can merge with me fully. Not just a connection, but a complete joining. Human mind and Keldari's ship working as one. Iothi's voice cut in. It is dangerous. The merge could destroy both of us. But if it works, we become something new. Something the tide has never encountered. Fast enough to reach the core. Unpredictable enough to survive the attempt. Prail looked between Darren and the ceiling, where Iothi's presence seemed to hover. You're asking me to let you fly a 12,000-year-old ship directly into an enemy swarm on a suicide mission based on a theory about human stubbornness. Yes, and if you fail, then you take the Keldari and run. Hide them somewhere. Give them a chance. That's all we're asking for. A chance. The GRA commander was silent for a long moment. Behind her, the clapping game had ended. The Keldari boy had fallen asleep against the Marine's shoulder. The Marine was smiling, one hand resting gently on the child's head. My officers won't follow orders to abandon civilians, Prail finally said. Not even alien ones. Then give them different orders, such as, buy us time. The Ascending Silence is fast, but we need an opening. Draw the outer drones away. Make them think you're the real threat. You want us to be bait. I want you to be heroes. Prail laughed. It was a tired sound, worn thin by years of following rules that didn't account for moments like this. You know, Cole, I've spent my career trying to maintain order, trying to keep the galaxy safe by enforcing protocols. And today I'm going to help a salvage operator and an ancient alien consciousness fly in a certain death to save a species no one has seen in 12,000 years. She shook her head. My supervisors are going to be furious. If we win, you can blame me. If we win, I'm going to recommend you for the highest medal the GRA can give. Darren smiled. I'd rather have a hot meal and a real bed. That could be arranged too. The preparations took 2 hours. Nira organized the evacuation of the youngest Keldari to the GRA cruisers, just in case. The adults who were able to understand stayed on Tessith, refusing to leave the home they had just found. Darren returned to the interface chamber one last time. The chair waited for him, the tendrils hanging silent and still. Are you ready? Iathi asked. No, but I'm going anyway. Why? Darren thought about the question. He thought about his life before this, salvaging wrecks and sleeping alone on his tiny ship. He thought about the children laughing in the grass. He thought about Iathi, waiting in the dark for 12,000 years. Because some things are worth dying for, he said, and you're one of them. Darren, don't argue. I've made up my mind. Let's go save your people. He sat in the chair. The tendrils descended. And this time, Darren did not hold back. He gave everything he had to the merge, his memories and fears and hopes and stubborn refusal to quit. He felt Iathi do the same, her ancient wisdom and endless patience and desperate love for the people she had protected for so long. They became one. The ascending silence rose from Tessith's surface, no longer just a ship, no longer just a mind. It was something new, something the hollow tide had never seen. Ahead, the swarm waited. 1,000,000 drones, 1,000 ships, all controlled by a cold intelligence that had consumed civilizations. Behind, the GRA cruisers opened fire, drawing attention, creating chaos. And in the center of it all, a human and a Keldari flew together into the dark, carrying hope like a weapon. The swarm was everywhere. Drones filled the space around them like a living storm, millions of biomechanical hunters moving with perfect coordination. The ascending silence dove through them, spinning and weaving, following paths that no normal pilot could have seen. But Darren was not a normal pilot anymore. He was the ship. He was Iathi. There was something new, thinking faster than either could alone, reacting before threats even appeared. And still it was not enough. The core waited at the center of the swarm, a massive structure of twisted metal and organic matter. It pulsed with cold intelligence, directing the tide's movements, learning from every attack. Darren could feel it watching them, studying them, preparing to adapt. We cannot reach it, Iathi said in their shared mind. The drones are too thick. Every path is blocked. Then we make our own path. Darren pushed the ship faster. Engine screamed. Hull plates buckled. Warning systems blared in languages dead for 12,000 years. He ignored all of it. One of the drones got through their defenses and lashed onto the hull. Its jaws began dissolving the metal, eating through to the systems beneath. Another followed. Then another. We are being consumed, Iathi reported. Her voice was calm, but Darren could feel her fear. 30% of secondary systems offline. Weapons failing. Keep going. We will not survive. We don't need to survive. We need to win. The core loomed ahead, close enough now to see the tendrils that connected it to the swarm. Those connections carried commands, information, thought. If they could reach the core, if they could touch it, they could end this, but the drones were everywhere. The ship was dying. They were dying. Darren. Iathi's voice was soft now. I need to tell you something. Save it for later. There may not be a later. I need you to know. In 12,000 years of waiting, of loneliness, of despair, I never gave up. Do you know why? Because you're stubborn. Because I believe someone would come. Someone who would see my people and choose to help. Not because of reward or obligation, but because it was right. I believe the universe still had beings like that. And you found a half-broke salvage operator who talks to machines. I found a hero. I found a friend. I found proof that I was right to hope. The core was seconds away. The ship was falling apart around them. Darren made a decision. Iathi, do you trust me? Yes. Then open everything. Drop all shields. Let the tide in. That will destroy us. No, it will let us destroy them. Iathi did not argue. She opened the ship's systems completely, exposing their minds to the hollow tide's probing intelligence. The core saw them clearly for the first time. It reached out to consume them, to absorb their knowledge, to become immune to everything they were. IT grabbed hold of Darren's mind, and Darren let it. The Hollow Tide's intelligence was old and cold. It had consumed dozens of civilizations, learning from each one, becoming stronger, more efficient, more perfect. It had no emotion, no fear, no doubt. It was pure hunger, pure logic, pure emptiness, but it had never tasted hope. Darren poured everything into the connection. Not weapons, not strategy, memories, feelings. The children laughing in the grass on Tessith. Iathi's voice after 12,000 years of silence. Nira crying when she saw her people for the first time. Commander Prael choosing to help instead of follow orders. The warmth of friendship. The weight of sacrifice. The stubborn belief that tomorrow could be better than today. The hollow tide could not process it. Its cold logic crashed against the illogical reality of human emotion. It tried to adapt, tried to learn, but there was nothing to learn. Hope was not a weapon to be countered. It was not a strategy to be understood. It was just a feeling, just a choice, just the decision to keep going when everything said to stop. The core began to malfunction. Commands contradicted each other. Drones turned on their neighbors. The swarm tore itself apart from the inside. Darren felt himself fading. The merge had taken everything he had. His body was shutting down somewhere far away. But it did not matter. The tide was dying. His friends were safe. Darren, Iathi's voice was distant now. Stay with me. Tired. I know. But you promised me something. A body. A way to feel again. You have to keep that promise. I'll try. Do not try. Do. That is what humans do, isn't it? You do impossible things because you refuse to accept they are impossible. Darren laughed. It hurt. Everything hurt. But he laughed anyway. Yeah, that's us. The core collapsed. The swarm went silent. Across the system, millions of drones fell like dead leaves, their controlling intelligence gone. On Tessith, the Keldari watched the sky fill with falling stars. 3 weeks later, Darren woke up in a medical bay on Commander Prael's ship. His body was covered in bandages. His head felt like it had been used as a drum. But he was alive. You're awake. Nira sat beside his bed, her silver eyes wet with tears. The doctors said you shouldn't have survived. Brain damage, neural overload, total system failure. But you kept breathing anyway. Told you. Humans are stubborn. A small device on the table beside him flickered to life. Iathi's voice came through, stronger than before, almost cheerful. Welcome back, hero. You made it too. Thanks to you. When the tide fell, I managed to transfer my core consciousness to a backup system. I'm no longer bound to the ship. Nira has been helping me design a new body. Something mobile. Something that can feel. Good. You deserve to feel the sun. Darren sat up slowly, looking out the window at Tessith below. The Keldari colony was alive again, lights dotting the surface where there had been only darkness. 8,000 refugees were building a future they had never expected to see. What happens now, he asked. Now we rebuild, Nira said. The Keldari have a home again. The hollow tide is gone. And you, Darren Cole, are famous. I don't want to be famous. Too bad. Commander Prael has already submitted her report. The human who saved a species and killed an ancient evil. You're going to be in history books. Darren groaned. Can I at least get some coffee first? Iathi laughed. It was a real laugh now, not filtered through ancient machinery. I will make sure you get coffee. And breakfast. And anything else you want. You have earned it. All I did was refuse to give up. Yes, that is what makes you remarkable. Darren leaned back against his pillow and watched the sun rise over Tessith. He thought about the Keldari children playing in the grass. He thought about Iathi finally getting a chance to live again. He thought about all the impossible things that had happened because one stubborn human refused to accept the rules. Hey, Iathi. Yes, thank you for trusting me, for hoping. Thank you for proving I was right to hope. Outside, the first Keldari ships in 12,000 years lifted off from the planet's surface, carrying the scattered children of a lost civilization toward a future that was finally worth living. And somewhere in the galaxy, other species would hear the story. A human who found frozen refugees and chose to save them. A ship that waited 12 millennia for help. A bond between strangers that defeated an impossible enemy. That is what humans leave behind. Not weapons, not technology. Hope. And hope, it turns out, is the most stubborn thing in the universe.